We're gonna learn how to make a really old recipe called onion pie tonight. If you're joining, we're going to make a onion pie tonight. This is a really old recipe, and trust me, when people hear it, they're like, what is that? Is that a dessert? But it's not. It's a meal-in-one. So if you're here to learn how to make a old-fashioned onion pie, I'm gonna teach you. I'm not a professional cook, but I have been making this onion pie since I was over almost 30 years. And it was given to me by a friend when I was in my 20s. I made this onion pie before I brought one to my dad, but I'd made one for my dad because I knew my dad would love it. And I brought it over to this house, is where he lived at the time before he passed away. And he ate that whole pie and made himself sick because it was so good. So you're gonna start with 3 sweet onions, okay? You can either get 1 really large sweet onion or 3 regular size sweet onions. There's no art to cutting them up because you're just going to cook them until they're translucent in butter. So the first thing you're gonna do is have that ready, and there's very little ingredients to this recipe. I just want to get these onions chopped up real quick and we'll go over the ingredients to the recipe. It's really easy to make. Now, I am not a pie crust maker. Where my daughter can make an excellent pie crust, I cannot. So I always buy the pre-made pie crust from the cooler section of the grocery store. Pillsbury makes a really good one. Nobody can tell the difference that I know of, but one of these days I'll have to have my daughter teach me the secret of making pie crust, because I'm not an excellent baker like my daughter and my sister-in-law, but I do know how to cook a really good dinner. So the first thing we're going to do is get our onions ready, and then we're going to get our butter in the skillet. We'll go over our ingredients because I think it's really just like 5 ingredients, you guys, to make this recipe. And it is a holiday favorite for my family. So I hope you try this out and you like it. So get a pen handy because I'm getting ready to give you the ingredients that you're going to need. If you've got a pen and paper, then get it ready because we're going to go over the ingredients. So you already know that you're going to need 3 sweet onions or 1 really big softball size or little smaller sweet onion. You're going to need 1/3 cup of heavy cream. You can buy this in the milk section at any grocery store. Heavy whipping cream. You're going to need a little bit of salt and pepper. And you're going to need 3 to 4 teaspoons or tablespoons. What is this? I'm sorry. It is tablespoons of butter. Salted butter, unsalted butter, whatever you want to use, whatever's healthier for you. You're going to need 1 box. If you can't make pie crust and you're like me, you're going to need 1 box of pie crust from the grocery store, and you need to let it set out and let it get room temperature so that it rolls out better. And 1 pound of regular sausage. Now, I would get a premium sausage, but you can use any sausage you want. If you want to use a spicy sausage, if you want to use an Italian sausage, you can use any of those ground sausages that you want. But I recommend for the first time that you're making it, just buy an original mild sausage until you decide whether you like the onion pie or not. Then you can go from there on what kind of sausage you want to use after you realize how much you're going to like the pie. Okay? And I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So, yeah, I think that's it. You're going to need a pie crust pan, or pie plate, pie pan, whatever you want to call it. The onions chopped up. And I think we're about ready to start. So, but right now I'm going to go ahead and put this down into my skillet, which is probably good and hot by now. And we're going to get started. Hang on, I'm going to tilt it down so you can see it. I'm going to get my butter also in my other skillet. So give me just a second here. Knock it off. My dogs are trying to figure out who the heck I'm talking to. They're like, should we bark? Should we not bark? We don't know what's going on. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. So I probably have this skillet a little too hot. I'm going to turn that heat down on that because the onion, you don't want your onions to be dark brown or any caramelized or anything. You just want them to be cooked to a translucent texture where you know, kind of where they're starting to turn clear. And like I said, you don't have to chop them any fancy way, you guys. You're just gonna, because you're gonna cook them down, and then you're gonna mix them in with the breakfast sausage. Now you don't, and you also don't want to cook the onions and the sausage together. You want to cook them in separate pans. And trust me, yes, your house is going to smell like sausage. And if you don't have one of these, you should get one. They're wonderful for ground meat. Hamburger, sausage, ground chicken, ground turkey. These, even pulled beef or pork, they're wonderful if you're frying something in the skillet. They really help break, it helps break your meat down. I might need to add a little bit of butter to this. I need to turn this skillet down. It's really good and hot. I already got my oven preheating because the Pillsbury pie crust requires the oven to be at 450 degrees. So I've got it preheating so that it'll be ready for the pie when it goes in the oven. The good thing about ground pork is it does not, ground sausage, it does not take very long to cook. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a little bit of salt and pepper in there. Excuse me a second. I'm going to grab my salt. Don't judge my salt container. I like to buy kosher salt, so, and keep it in bulk. Lasts longer, I guess. Now we've got our onions going over here, and I'm going to give them a quick little stir so that they can be cooking down. And again, this has 4 tablespoons of butter in it. And we want to make sure that they all fall apart and they really start melting down, but not caramelized. I mean, if you do it for the first time and you accidentally caramelize them, it's okay. Don't worry. All right. But you don't need to caramelize them. You just want to get them translucent and soft. And like I said, this is just an old recipe that a really old woman gave me years ago. And when she told me about it, I was like, what? That sounds horrible. Like, I like onions though. Don't get me wrong. I love onions. Good slice of onion on a burger or in a salad. I mean, I've never had any problems with onions. Some people don't like onions at all. But this is a sweet onion. So you want to make sure you're not buying a yellow onion or a purple onion. You want to make sure you're buying a sweet onion because it has a completely different taste to it when it's cooked. So our onions are starting to really get coated good in the butter. And we're going to go back to our sausage and get it really going here. Make sure I might have to turn that skillet back up again. And I've been making it for so long, I think my husband's tired of it. I wish I knew where the recipe originated from, whether, you know, like, it's just an old Southern recipe or old English recipe or German recipe. So, sausage is looking pretty good. Now once the onions are ready, you guys, we're gonna pour that heavy whipping cream right into the onions before we mix in our sausage, okay? And then we're gonna mix it all together and get it in our pie shell. So I'm gonna just gently roll out this pie crust like this. I'm gonna get it ready to put down in this pie shell. So give me just a second here. And I think what I'll do is I will go ahead and put just a little bit of butter in my pie plate real quick. Just gonna take the whole stick of butter and lather up this pie plate just a little, not real heavy, but just enough that I know that my pie crust isn't gonna stick to it real bad. And I'm just gonna lay this nicely pre-made pie crust right down in this pan, and then I'm gonna pinch it around my pie plate like an expert. Like I said, I'm not a baker, but I know how to cook a nice dinner for sure. I was raised in the kitchen growing up. My mom died when I was 7 years old, and my grandmother, my mother's mother, she owned a lot of restaurants in Tennessee, and I learned a lot of good recipes from her and learned how to cook some really good food over the years. My favorite recipe of hers is was her depression gravy. Oh my gosh, I love that stuff. So now I did not make this perfect because it's going to be covered. We're going to pour the onions and the sausage right down into this pie shell. And some people like to bake their might like to bake their pie crust for a few minutes. I don't think you necessarily have to with this, but you know, feel free if you are better at baking pie crust than I am, which is probably about 90% of the world, then feel free to go ahead and, you know, to do that. Now, our onions are getting really close. As you can see, they're starting to really separate and they smell really good. You can add salt and pepper to this instead of your sausage if you want. Either way, you know, you don't want to over season and add too much salt and pepper to both dishes while they're cooking. So, all right, our onions are looking good, you guys. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shut all my burners off. I'm gonna get my handy dandy meat masher out of the way here. I'm gonna turn the camera so you guys can, or remove my pan so you can see. And I'm gonna take my heavy cream and I'm gonna pour it into the onions. The heavy cream is the key ingredients in this, you guys. If you don't have heavy cream, I guess you could probably substitute with sour cream, but it's not going to taste the same. But because the heavy cream and the sweet onions are definitely the key ingredients in this. Now I'm going to stir this in real good. And now I'm going to start adding my sausage into this. And then everything in here is going to go into the pie shell. So, big spoon here. Because I cannot pick up this cast iron skillet, it's way too heavy. So, all right, so let's go over the ingredients again. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. You're gonna need 1 pound of sausage, 3 sweet onions, a box of pie shells. I used Pillsbury or Kroger brand. I don't know if I've ever bought a generic brand from Walmart, but either one will work really good. 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter, salted or unsalted, just whatever you prefer, whatever's more healthier for you. 1/3 cup of heavy whipping cream, salt and pepper, or any other seasonings you want to add to it. If you're like Greek seasonings or Italian seasonings, you know, you're able to really do that. Add what you like, which I think that makes everybody's recipe better when you know what your taste is, what spices you like. And you're always going to cook your meat and your onions separate. You don't want to cook them together because then it's going to tear up your onions and you don't want your onions tore up in the pie. Again, you're not going to caramelize your onions, you're just going to cook them down until they're translucent or soft. If you do caramelize your onions, it's okay. It's not gonna hurt anything. Just may taste a little different. Now, we've got everything mixed up. Sausage and the onions all mixed up with the heavy cream. And we're gonna pour that right down into the pie shell. So This is what it looks like before we cover it. Now I'm gonna get my other pie crust and we're gonna get it covered. My dogs are still trying to figure out who I'm talking to. They're like, who? Is somebody here? I've got a Cochin chicken out there that does not want to go to the coop at night right now for some reason. And I had to chase her down and get her in the coop this evening. I don't know what's going on with her, if she's getting bullied or what. For those of you that are followers of mine and our raised backyard chickens. So now I'm sure there are. So what I'm doing is I'm pinching the bottom crust and the top crust together, okay? So I've taken it, I laid it on top, and I'm going around and I'm just kind of creasing it together so that it's sealed up tight. Now you can cut pretty slits in it, that's absolutely fine. I've actually made these with croissant pastry too, and that was delicious. If you like a flaky pastry, that was fabulous. I need to do that again. I have a friend that moved to Florida, and I gave her this recipe years ago. If you're on here, Sheila, and you're watching, I'm talking about you. Anyway, all right, so I've got my pie crust all pinched together. Now we can cut some slots in it if you want. I'm not going to, because I really don't need to worry about the slats. I probably will go ahead and under it in the oven though. So I'm gonna grab that real quick. It shouldn't boil over because it doesn't have anything to boil over with, but just to be safe, I'm gonna go ahead and add a tray. So it's not like a shepherd's pie or something where it can boil over. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it in the oven. I could have baked a little bit longer, but since you guys are here watching, I want you to see the onion pie. Hopefully that music's not too loud and overbearing. Probably could have baked a little bit longer. So I'm just gonna cut right down into it. It probably needs to set too, but I don't want to keep you guys any longer, so I want you to see what the finished product looks like. I didn't have a pie spatula, so you can see the inside. It's kind of, if you make meat pies, maybe it's similar to a meat pie. I've never really made a meat pie. I should, because I love this pie. So, but my piece fell apart because I used a bad spatula. So we're gonna test it out, see how it turned out. I'm really looking forward to hearing from everybody who actually makes this recipe and tries it out. It's delicious. It's delicious. You guys, if you missed the live on making this onion pie, you can find an old video down in my feed. I'll try to pin it to the top for tonight for you guys so you can find it quickly. But if you have never ate or experienced an onion pie before, you've got to try this recipe because it will quickly become a favorite holiday dish to take to family gatherings. It's so good. So, thanks for joining me, everybody. And let me know if you try this recipe. I look forward to hearing from everybody who actually tries the onion pie. Don't try to scoop it out with a metal spatula that's too big. Your piece will fall apart. So, I'll see everybody soon on the next live.